Hello, welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody. I am joined alongside a very special guest today, Will Wright and Jason McKie, the 2006 Super Bowl fullback for the Chicago Bears, currently working for ESPN 1000. Excited to have both of them on. Before we begin this video, please hit the like button, put your thoughts in the comment section below, and hit that subscribe button. But Jason, welcome to the show. Excited to have you on.
No, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I know you guys are doing a lot of good things, and anytime I can help aid in that process, but also, talk football, in particular, talk about the Bears, I'm going to make myself available.
Absolutely. I mean, I see the hat on right now. I love the classic hat, and I know you're going to be at training camp. We're going to try to meet up. If Will flies up on Saturday, I got an extra ticket for him, so we'll see where Will's at. But Jason, to start things off for this episode, something for the fans to know, I kind of have an idea of who it is, but I got to see what your answer is. Out of your playing days with the Chicago Bears, who was the funniest guy in the locker room, game in, game out?
Oh, man. You know what? We had so many guys, so many characters on our team. To pick one person, I would be doing a big injustice to all those other guys. So I'm just going to name off a few guys.
There we go. How about a few?
I'll name off a few guys. A lot of funny guys. Thomas Jones, obviously we were around each other probably the most. Meeting rooms, running back meeting room was definitely the livest meeting room in Hallis Hall. You can ask anybody that, ask the D-line, ask Tommy Harris, ask receivers. They always want to know what's going on in the running back meeting room. So Thomas Jones, Adrian Peterson, those two guys are hilarious. Obviously Tommy Harris was hilarious. He was always a character. Anthony Adams, you see what he's doing now. That dude, he's just on another level. You know what I mean? But the funny thing is, people think that he is like that all the time. He's not. He's really a quiet guy. But when that camera's on or that light's on, he hits that funny button. So we had a lot of good character guys, a lot of guys with a good sense of humor, but a lot of hardworking guys. So I just those guys I named just a few of many.
So going off of that, this just popped in my head, and I'm curious about it. Was Lovie Smith always that quiet in the locker room like he was on the field, or was it a completely different type of person when he was behind closed doors?
Yeah, Lovie, for the most part, he was even keel. He treated us like men. He let us go about the day, and if we prepared and carried ourselves like men, like pros, he didn't get on you. But if we were slacking, if we weren't, getting the job done or taking care of the things that we were supposed to take care of, he would get on you. So was Lovie always quiet? No. Lovie, he got on you when he needed to. But other than that, he treated us like men. And, the thing about Lovie, he was a coach, but he really cared about us as people. The first thing Lovie did when he came in and took over as head coach, he gave us all his cell phone number. And he's like, look, if you need anything, I don't care if you're, hungover at a bar, you need me to come pick you up. I'm not going to judge you. I'll come pick you up. You know what I mean? He was that type of coach, the type of coach that really care about us as people and not just players.
Did you take him up on the opportunity ever?
I had a couple of times where I thought about it, but I was like, nah, I'm not calling Lovie. Back then there was no Uber, man. So, when we used to go downtown, we used to all chip in and rent limos or rent a car to go downtown. So a couple of times we thought about taking Lovie up on that offer, but I was like, I'm definitely not calling the head coach to come pick us up.
Well, maybe now it would be all right. Now that you guys are all, good to go. And shout out Lovie for the first overall pick this past year. I was at that game and everyone was chanting Lovie, Lovie, because, he still loves the Bears at the end of the day, even though he was with the Texans. But, Will, go into your question real quick. I know I wanted to ask Jason for the fans to know, but let's take it back to 2005 and let's talk to Jason about the Panthers.
Now let's talk. Now in the regular season, y'all beat the Panthers back in 2005, Jason. So when the playoffs started, I think it was a divisional game from Soldier Field, and it really tormented my heart because Stephen Smith had 218 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. And of course, you scored a touchdown to bring it, I think, within 23-21, if my memory serves correctly. Even though you all lost that game, what from that game did you ascertain to help you prepare transitioning to 06 into that special season?
Yeah, that's a good question, Will. The funny thing is I actually rewatched that game a couple of days ago. I had Thomas Jones on our podcast the other day, and I rewatched that game, and we talked about it a little bit on that podcast. But going into that game, we had that bye week. I think we're the number 2 seed, had a bye week and played the Panthers. And I think that bye week, I think that hurt us. I think it, you go in the playoffs, you finish the regular season and you're in a rhythm. The routine's the same, you're used to doing things the same. Going into that bye week, it's like, dang, now we get another week off. We're in rhythm, we're in sync right now. You take a week off, then you come back and try to restart, everything that you had going for you before you had that time off. So I think that hurt us as a team. It's so hard to win a game in the NFL, but it's even harder to beat the same team twice. And like you said, we beat Carolina earlier in the regular season. I think that was earlier in the season. We ended up beating them, came back, and like you said, Steve Smith had a field day, and it was just his day. It was just Carolina's day. They played better than we did. We had a chance to win that game. A couple things didn't go our way. But at the end of the day, I think that game, going through that experience, that humility of losing that playoff game at Soldier Field, it really put a chip on our shoulder. It really motivated us. It really gave us an inner hunger to where, a lot of guys in the offseason, we didn't take a break because we were, first and foremost, we were embarrassed. I know I was embarrassed to lose in front of, the great Bears fans that we have. I was embarrassed. I know that the other guys were embarrassed, and we were pissed, to be quite honest. And I didn't take a lot of time off that off season. I know a lot of guys didn't either. And we knew we were good. We knew what we had. We knew the type of chemistry that we built. We knew the type of team that we had, and we knew we were better than what the product that we put on the field that day. So going into the off season, everybody had a chip on their shoulder, and going into that 06 season, our motto was Space Mountain. And Space Mountain was we wanted to achieve the ultimate goal, the ultimate pinnacle, which was winning a Super Bowl. So everything we did, we broke it down with Space Mountain. When we attacked the weight room, we attacked the all-season program, it was everything we did was geared toward getting to Space Mountain. And we had a quiet cockiness because we were confident. So when we were going into games, we knew we were going to win. You know what I'm saying? Just because we had experience, we had a taste of the playoffs, we had a taste of being humble. But we knew the preparation that we put in the offseason. So that 06 year, I think if you look at the first 6 games, we were like 6-0 or 7-0.
Yep.
And, we were cocky, but we were confident because we were prepared. We had a chip on our shoulder. We were trying to achieve that goal, Space Mountain. So that's what that 05 game did to us. It just made us reinvent who we were as players. It made us reinvent who we were as teammates. It made the entire organization reinvent who we were, as an organization, just basically reinvented the type of identity we were going to have moving forward as the Chicago Bears.
So let me ask you this. Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, when you were saying that, like who you were, kind of reminds me of when you guys played the Cardinals back in 2006. And right after,
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the Bears are who we thought they were.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was just getting ready to
back
bring
that
that up.
memory right there.
Yeah, absolutely. He rests in peace because I think he's no longer with us. But at the end of the day, I was going to ask Jason, in 2006, what game served as that catalyst as to a special season en route to going to the Super Bowl? And of course, it was that Cardinals game because Monday night, Matt Leinart was cooking, Anquan Bolden. They was up like 20-0, I think. And we had like 6 turnovers. We couldn't do nothing effectively. And next thing you know, I saw Mark Anderson on the backside. Scoop and score. Was it Mike Brown, I believe?
Yeah, Mike Brown had one. He had one.
He had one. Because early I could strip Adrian James.
Yeah.
And then which was the icing on the cake.
Oh, yeah.
That punt return. When I saw that, I said, you know what? This team is destined to do something special this year. Because the offense laid an egg, but the defense and special teams, and then when he missed that field goal on the way, I knew Walter Payton and the football guys were like, you know what? Let me show them some grace because it's been well-deserved and well-earned. And that right there really transitioned us to a point where I thought we was going to win the Super Bowl that year wholeheartedly. It still bothers me to this day. So, Jason, if I felt like that, like realistically playing in the Super Bowl and being that close to victory, how did it make you feel? Yeah,
it was tough, man. Like, just going back to that Cardinals game, like you said, I can recall Olin Kreutz in the locker room, and he brought everybody up. And, Olin's the ultimate leader, the ultimate alpha male. He was the glue guy in the locker room. When things weren't going right, when things, you know, when they weren't going right, Olin speaks up, everybody listens. You know, as he leads, we follow. And, you know, Olin, you know, the speech that he gave at halftime, it was like, you know, everybody believe in yourself. We're going to win this game. We are going to win this game. And I recall at that time, I look over at AP and I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, I'm like, I swear, I'm looking at AP. Me and AP's like, man, like, we ain't gonna win this game. Like, and you're right, we couldn't do nothing on offense. It was terrible. Like, we were awful. We were awful. I mean, it was horrible. And you know what? I don't know offensively. I honestly don't know what was wrong with us. You know, nothing changed. We had a good week of practice. Pre-game warmups went well. You know, nobody gave us food poisoning in the hotel the night before or anything like that. I mean, we just didn't play well. And, you know, Olin gave that speech. And like you said, we came out at halftime and all those things happened. The defense just, you know, played their butts off. A legendary performance, you know, one like no other. There'll never be another performance like what they did at that game defensively for the Chicago Bears. And, you know, you mentioned all those great players, Mike Brown, Charles Tillman, Tommy Harris, you know, all those guys, you know, Lance Briggs, Urlacher, all those guys made plays. And then you have the GOAT taking that punt to the house, you know, Devin, it was amazing, man. Like, after that, I was like, wow, you know what? Like, I knew we were cocky and confident, but after that, you just knew, like, hey, you know what? Something special. We got something special brewing here, which we already knew, but that just validated it, how special we could be and how far we could take things. So, you know, like I said, getting to the Super Bowl is one thing. We didn't finish the goal, and, you know, it still hurts to this day. But at the same time, I look back on it, and I look back at my career, and I was blessed to be in the locker room with so many great human beings, let alone great football players. So, you know, that's what I'm most thankful for, you know, being able to have that journey, being able to play in that game with the guys that we had in that locker room. Like, they're second to none, you know, and it's one of the highlights of my life, just remembering the good times in the locker room with all those guys.
That's awesome.
And so, Jason, I wanna go in here because I think that leads so well into our, you know, our big first subject of the day is, you know, the Bears culture now. You know, 2022, 2023, last year was a super tough year, but the year felt so much better because everyone was on the same page. You know, Flus walks in, Poles walks in, the entire new coaching staff, and everyone's like, you know what? We know what we have to do in order to get better. This team was young. There was a lot of guys who weren't sure. There was a lot of drama throughout the season. I mean, last year walking into training camp, there was 3 off-field issues, 2 holdouts, you know, 17 injuries walking into camp. You know, today everyone walks in, fully healthy roster. Everyone's on the same page. Besides 6 guys, all under 30 years old, and they all work together this offseason. Kind of sounded like you were saying you guys would all get together, chip in for limos, and go downtown and have a good time, you know, back when you were on the team. So you have a very interesting situation because you're able to get up close to the 2023 guys, but also the 2005 and 2006 teams. And you just told us so much awesome information about that. But what excites you about this 2023 culture right now compared to back then? Do you see any similarities? Do you see anything that you're really liking that's going in the positive direction? As a player, as a fan, and as an analyst, what excites you about this team right now?
Yeah, I think the main thing that excites me is the hunger that these guys have. You know, obviously coming off the season last year, we only had 3 wins. I think a lot of those guys that was a part of that team and that have been a part of this organization, you know, for a while, who in which they haven't had a lot of winning seasons since they've been there. I think they're tired of it. You know, they're fed up. They're motivated. And if you look at Eddie Jackson's press conference he's had today, he said, you know what, I'm tired of losing. You know, I'm tired of this. It's time to get this thing turned around. And I think that is starting to matriculate down throughout the locker room. I think the guys that they're bringing in are good character guys. They come from winning organizations. You know, you look at TJ Edwards, you look at Tremaine Edmonds, 2 guys that were a part of great defenses, but also great teams. And I like the fact that they're not just looking at talent, because talent's only going to get you so far. They're looking at the character, the men that they're trying to bring in the locker room, the leaders, guys that are leading by example, guys that can continue to, you know, continue to spread that culture or to enhance that culture on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, you know, Coach Flus can say what he wants. You know, his principle, we're going to be this, we're going to be that, we're going to be tough, we're going to be this. But you got to have the leaders, you got to have the alphas in that locker room to reinforce that culture, to reinforce that standard on a daily basis. And if you don't have those type of guys in the locker room, you know, you're not going to be good, because once a standard slips or once that culture, you know, goes away, it's hard to get back. And I think that's something that, you know, these guys are taking ownership of. They're making sure that everybody's on the same page. everybody's working equally as hard. But another thing they're doing is they're trying to build that chemistry away from the football field. I think that's a secret ingredient to any team's success. Like you have to genuinely care about the person that you're lining up with if you expect to go out there on Sunday or Monday nights or whenever you're playing in order to have success. You got to care about the man next to you as a person and not just as a football player.
Yeah, I think that's so impactful too as a fan, because Chicago sports fans as a whole, I mean, the Cubs, Bears, Black, we are brutal on our teams, especially when they're not living up to expectations. And anyone will say this, you hear this all the time coming around the league. Chicago is a Bears town. And the Blackhawks can be winning 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years. The Cubs can go to the playoffs 8 years in a row. The White Sox can do whatever. But at the end of the day, no matter who's doing the best, everyone cares about the Bears the most. And it can be, you can speak to it as well. We kind of talked about it too. It can get tolling. You hear what the media is saying. You see, and now with social media, you see what social media is saying. But these guys are sticking together through it all. I mean, those guys stood up for Justin Fields more than I saw, during the last coaching era. I mean, that was tough. There wasn't that type of culture there. I mean, you'd see Akeem Hicks do it every now and then, but it wasn't, everyone was flocking. You see Cole Kmet doing stuff now. You see his wide receivers saying things. Chase Claypool is taking a ton of heat. And what are his teammates doing? They're standing up for him. So that's what's exciting for us to see as fans. And for you to reassure that, especially coming off what it took to get to the ultimate game and the ultimate level of the Super Bowl, that's something that we obviously want to hear. And just a follow-up question to that, because, you talked about the running back room back in the day and, the relationship you had with Thomas Jones, who is arguably one of my favorite players of all time in the Chicago Bears uniform. He was the man. Like, I don't know what else to say about it, but he was the man. And, you had Adrian Peterson, you had Cedric Benson. You also got to play with guys like Matt Forte and Chester Taylor and guys like that. When you walking into that locker room, walking out onto the field together, you're their bodyguard at the end of the day, along with the offensive line. And hearing that relationship, out of all the guys that you played with, who do you think that you worked the best with? I mean, it sounds like you worked well with everybody, but I feel like it's Thomas Jones is the answer. But out of everyone that you played with in the Chicago Bears organization that you were blocking for, who was the guy that understood that same level of respect? And I'm going out. If this guy's going out for me, I'm going out for him.
Yeah, I've asked that question a lot. Who's my favorite running back to block for? And, all of them, to be honest. And, not just saying it, all of them. I have obviously with all those guys, that bond that we had in that running back room, it was special, and I took ownership of the fact that, hey, you know what? I've got to get my job done because I don't want to get my brother hit. You know what I'm saying? So I took ownership on all of that. And, the reinforcement that I got from those guys is they genuinely cared about what I was doing. They knew I was out there putting my body on the line, shortening my neck for those guys each and every play, that they knew that and they appreciated that. And, they always tell me that, hey, good block, man, great game. You know what I mean? They always reassured that. So, all of them, like you mentioned, all the great backs that we had here, Forte, Cedric Benson, AP, all them guys, T. Jones, like all those guys, hold a special place in my heart. So, all those guys, in terms of blocking style, nothing changed. All those guys are great running backs. I think they all appreciate what I did. So I just want to go out there and make sure I did my job. The thing about it is we were like, nobody could be harder on us than we were on ourselves, because at the end of the day, if I made a mistake, then I let my brothers down. You know what I'm saying? If the O-line made a mistake, they let us down. If the running backs read the wrong hole, they let us down. We were really accountable to each other. You know what I'm saying? More so than the coaches. Like, the coaches knew they could get on us, but at the same time, they knew the bond that we had in that locker room, the brotherhood. They knew that we were more accountable to each other. And I think that's what made us really good, because I did not want to let any of my teammates down, and I knew how my teammates felt about me. Like we talked about before the podcast, fullbacks they're not in the limelight, but at the end of the day, I don't do it to be in the limelight. I went out there and put my body on the line each and every play for my brothers. And my brothers understand my value and what I brought to the team, just like I understood what they brought to the team. So when you have that type of camaraderie, when you have that type of chemistry, when you have that type of brotherhood, it's easy to see why we were successful during that time.
And with that bond, kind of more of a fun question on top of that. I asked who was the funniest guy in the locker room, but out of all the running backs that you blocked for, who was the best trash talker on the field? to the opposing team.
Oh man, without a doubt, Thomas Jones, man, that dude, like,
love it,
man. He was like, but the funny thing is, like, what people don't realize, and I don't know if I've told the story before, like, we would talk trash to the other team, you know what I mean, all the time. Like, a lot of trash talking goes out on the field. But the funny thing is, in our huddle, we were talking trash with each other. Like, it was always being Thomas Jones versus like Olin Kreutz and Ruben Brown, because we had that type of bond. So when we were talking trash to each other, that's how we showed affection for each other. You know what I'm saying? So, we'd come back to the huddle and Olin would be like, "Man, Thomas, hit the hole," and T. Jones would be like, "Shut up and get your block." And Ruben would be like, "Oh, he's talking again." I'd be like, "Shut up, Ruben, turn around." And Ruben was like, "Just get your block, J-Mac." Like, that's the type of trash talking that we had, but that's how we showed affection. So, those things like that, those moments in time and those situations are things that I miss most. Being in a game and, being able to crack jokes with your brothers and talk trash and then go out there and execute at a high level and win a game. Like, those are the most memorable moments that I can remember playing.
And going off of that, I love to also hear that you guys had the type of relationship where you could say something to somebody and it wasn't going to hurt their feelings. In today's day and age, everyone's feelings get hurt. Will and I talk about it all the time. We miss the old days where guys would be, chopping it up and it wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings. But going off of that, I love to hear that Thomas Jones was a guy because, he was a beast on the field. I love that he was a good trash talker too. But out of all the opponents that you guys play, let's take it back real quick. Obviously, Green Bay is, Green Bay. That's the game that the two games you circle every single year on your calendar. During that 2006 season, you're up at Lambeau week 1. Devin Hester, as the rookie, brings it back to the house. What was the tension? Because Green Bay was not good that season. Green Bay was, thank God they weren't good that season, because for the next, 10 years, it kind of hurt a little bit. But in regards to that game alone, and you're in Green Bay week 1, your Super Bowl season, you go up there and you beat them, and you beat them bad too. What was the relation? What was it like in 2006 or your entire time with the Bears? What did that Green Bay game mean to you? Was the Minnesota game more important ever? Or like, what did Green Bay mean to you guys, no matter what the season, no matter what the team was? What was that tension and energy for?
Yeah, those games were, playing in that rivalry, it was like no other. You know what I'm saying? It was, you knew that if you didn't have a good season, you had to beat Green Bay. So that was something that was always a game that we circled on our schedule. All those other games were important because they were divisional games, but more importantly, that Green Bay game was going to be remembered. So, anytime we had an opportunity to go up there at Lambeau and play up there, at their home field, we want to come away with the W. Anytime they came to Soldier Field, we want to make sure, we spank them and send them back up to Green Bay. So those games, it was a little bit more focus. Yes. Was a little bit more attention to detail. Yes. Was it a little bit more pressure? Yeah, it was more pressure. But at the same time, we knew that we had to go out there and play well against Green Bay, because you can, despite what the record is, at the end of the day, you're going to be judged on if you beat Green Bay or not.
That's right. And Will and I talk about that being – Will, I know you're about to say something, but that's the most important game on our schedule as fans. I don't care what the season is.
And see, what we need to do, Nick, Jason, because Lovie, his first 5 seasons in Chicago, he went 7-3 against Green Bay. When you go back and do research, no other coach, for the most part, had that level of success, especially after the 90s. So we need to figure out what it was. I know Lovie ran the cover 2 and he got the pressure with the front 4 because he had Tommy at the 3 tech. But at the end of the day, we need to figure out what Lovie did so consistently year in and year out to basically dismantle Green Bay, frustrate them. And we can say, well, Brett Favre was near the end, and then of course Rodgers came in 2008. But Lovie had some stuff cooked.
Yeah,
those first 5 seasons as far as Green Bay, and honestly, if the offense, you did your job, the running game was tight. If the offense would have been more consistent, like Lovie still might be the coach today because the defense was always humming. So when we talk about the Green Bay series and now how it's so lopsided, where we're 14-46 in the last 20 years. Like, to me, that's utterly ridiculous because I know we dominated Green Bay, and when you look at that, what can you give the 2023 Bears, especially the defense, Alan Williams, Coach Eberflus, just some insight, because I know they love for the alumni to come back and be a part of the culture. But what are some of the things that you can add as far as value as to, because I don't think it would be necessarily outdated, but that they can implement today to kind of reel that rivalry back in our favor, because like I said, the last 20 years it's been extremely painful to watch.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of advice, if I go back to, I think the reason why Lovie was so successful, we were super prepared, over prepared. No stone was left unturned. We practice every situation that we could encounter each and every game. But Lovie always made sure that we knew, hey, you know what, this is Packer week. And that whole week, it was always a reminder in meetings on the practice field that it was Packer week. Hey, guys, you're not practicing hard. It's Packer week. You know what I'm saying? Hey, guys, you dropped that pass. It's Packer week. You know what I mean? Hey, you're in the wrong gap defensively. It's Packer week. You know what I'm saying? So he always reassured us throughout the week, each and every day, that it was a huge game. It was a rivalry. And that our number one goal, like he said, was when he took the job and he stood up there at that podium, was to beat Green Bay. So, if there's any advice I can give this current team, with Coach Flus and all those guys, obviously I think they're going to be better this year just because it's their second year. The first year they're just, getting their bearings right in terms of just knowing the guys on the team, knowing the guys they inherited. And now, that Coach Flus and Ryan Poles have had the opportunity to really put their fingerprints on this team. But the advice that I could give them is just make sure you over reassure that it's Packer week. You know what I mean? Especially week one. I've been like you said, I've been a part of a week one Green Bay game. Our first game, we were up there at Lambeau, but this year is here at Soldier Field, and just know the magnitude of the game. Yeah, it's a big game. This is a season starter. Starting off 1-0 is way better than starting off 0-1. You know what I mean? Teams that start off 1-0 have a better chance of having a successful season. I know it's one game, but I'm telling you, teams that start off with a win have a better chance of having a winning football season. So, he should be, telling everything they're doing right now, even in training camp, should be geared towards beating Green Bay at Soldier Field.
That's right. We'd love to hear that, because it's the first time since the 100th anniversary that the Bears have opened against the Green Bay Packers. And that was also at Soldier Field. That game, I was at that game, super tough. 10-7. Jimmy Graham, before he was a Chicago Bear, was the only touchdown. It was within grasp, and it really did change over that season, kind of like what you were saying before we logged on. 2007 against Kansas City, you guys opened up at Soldier Field, started off 0-1, unfortunately, and it was tough. It was really tough. It was a super tough, it changes your mentality for the whole season. It puts you over the wrong, you start off on the wrong foot, and you got to fight back. So absolutely, I love hearing that advice, because the other question we want to ask you, Jason, one of our last questions, and I'll leave you. I know you got one more in you. I'll ask, this is my last question for Jason, is for the Chicago Bears team right now, 2023, Justin Fields has all the weapons he needs. He has an offensive line, great running back room, 2 fullbacks at the moment. He has his fullback from last year coming back. His whole offense is the same, but a lot different at the same time, because it's going to be an expanded playbook. Luke Getsy feels more confident. The defense looks a ton better. And again, a very, very young team. So Jason, right now, looking at it on paper, what are you feeling for this team this upcoming season? What are your expectations, and what do you think this team could do overall? Because Will and I are the most optimistic guys in the world. We think they're going to the Super Bowl, and I hope that happens. But from a player's perspective, from your background, your history, and being an NFL player, what are you thinking for 2023 for the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, it goes along with a lot of things that you said already. I'll start with the offense. Justin Fields' second year in the system, so it's not like he has to learn terminology. It's not like he's just learning, in terms of making sure he's calling the play right. He's more comfortable, so he's going to be able to play faster. He's going to be able to go through his progressions in the passing game faster. You know what I mean? He's going to be able to help mentor and help coach the young guys that have come in, or the pieces they've added to this roster, just because he's another year in the system, he's more comfortable doing so. You add some pieces, obviously, DJ Moore, great receiver. You got a lot of guys coming back. Draft Darnell Wright. You bring in Nate Davis in free agency. Tevin Jenkins is at left guard. He's only playing left guard. He's not going through an offensive line carousel right now where he can just hone in and play left guard. And you're hoping that Braxton Jones can take another step in terms of developing. Played every game last year, which was huge as a rookie. So a lot of things are in place for Justin to be successful. I didn't even mention, Cole Kmet contract year. So he has all the talent around him. He's got the perfect setup to be successful. So I think the offense will take that next step. Everybody wants to know, will Justin Fields take the next step as a passer? I think he will, just because, like I said before, second year in the system, you understand what Getsy expects from a quarterback. So I think he'll be better just in terms of that and the weapons they added around him. Defensively, we know what they added. You got a great linebacking core. You bring in T.J. Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Jack Sanborn will be his second year in the system. He drafted guys, Noah Sewell. Eddie Jackson's coming back. Jaquan Brisker's second year. Kyler Gordon's second year. Jalen Johnson's in a contract year. You bring in DeMarcus Walker. You bring a guy, Andrew Billings, who's solid in the run game on that defensive line. So defensively, it's a complete makeover. You know what I mean? You've got leadership, like I said, in that linebacker room just by itself. You got a guy who's been to the Super Bowl, T.J. Edwards. You got leadership. In terms of Tremaine Edmonds, who's been on a great defense, who's had a lot of productivity throughout his entire career. You've got a veteran presence like Eddie Jackson on the back end. Jaquan Brisker had a hell of a year as a rookie. And you got a solid corner with Jalen Johnson. And then you have another rookie on the other side, Tariq Stevenson, who's shown some promise in training camp, but also we had to compete against some guys who have been there. So the setup is great. To say all that, the setup is great. I'm really optimistic. I think the Bears, when I look at the NFC North as a whole, there's not really a roster that stands out above one another. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's pegging Detroit to win the division, but, we know Detroit. Like, Detroit can have all the hype in the world, but Detroit's going to do Detroit things. They're going to mess up. Something's not going to go right.
They're going to Detroit.
They're going to Detroit, man.
Right now they fan dueling.
It happens every year. So when I look at it in terms of, I look at the roster, right? And I know it's on paper, the games played on the field, but that's all we can do right now. We can only look at the roster because we haven't played no games. I don't think there's a roster that's better than the other. I think the Bears are right there in terms of having a better roster, in terms of having a better setup, in terms of having a continuity that they have right now. So I'm really optimistic. I think this team is definitely capable of winning 10 games. I think they can be a playoff team, but the work starts now. I think the type of season they have will be predicated on terms of how they progress throughout training camp. A lot of guys have to take that next step. A lot of guys have to develop in order for them to achieve the goals that they want to achieve.
Absolutely. And I agree. I can't wait for training camp. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just training camp, but that's where it all begins. That's where the chemistry happens. That's where the plays are made. And that's who you find out who you're going to be playing with in 17 games and trying to go to the Super Bowl. So I'm with you, man. And I know you're going to be at camp every single day. Excited to see you there. Hopefully we do get a chance to link up. And I can't wait for this season either. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Will, I know you're going to a lot of games this year. I know you're going to be traveling a lot to go make sure that you're representing everywhere possible. Any more questions before we close out this episode?
Yeah, I got a couple, J-Mac. Because like I said, I don't watch the national sports commentators no more, the ESPN first takes, the FS1, because it seems like they continue to bash our beloved every opportunity they get. So if you're like me, and your quarterback says he's going to throw for 4,000 yards and he's top 5, rushing quarterback, the way that the rhetoric gets misconstrued in the sense of being arrogant and cocky when you have someone that has been putting in the work, that has spent the entire offseason with all of his current wide receivers, his rookie wide receivers, brought them down, paid for them at the risk, like just constantly putting in the work. Now, I've been following the NFL since I was knee-high to a neck in 83. So when I heard Peyton Manning say this and Tom Brady say this, 4,000, 5,000, 30, 40, as far as projections, forecast, everybody was like, oh, yes, let's go. But when Justin says it, 4,000 yards, realistically, in a 17-game season, that's 230 yards roughly a game. He's already showed the talent, and that's why I'm so high on us winning 10 or more games, because last year we lost 8 one-score games.
8 games by 1 score.
Now think about this. With a relatively skeleton crew, with and don't get me wrong, I love Equinemius St. Brown, I love Dante Pettis, but I watched every game. I attended a bunch of games, and they had a lot of key drops. They came out of the routes, couldn't, picks that he was throwing, like the line breaking down, because we had Sam Muscle at center, and we had Schofield and Riley Reed, who are at the end of their careers, playing positions that realistically they should have been playing. So when you look at what he has around him now, 4,000 yards in today's NFL, that's roughly nothing. So I guess my question is, because again, I'm glad that, you're getting access, because the mental capacity is almost as great as the physical. Because if people are constantly, and it seemed like Justin is grounded, his father seemed like, he basically had him mentally groomed to prepare for this stage. So from your perspective, from your point of view, would you rather have a quarterback that is confident or just sits back and allows everything to be dictated towards him? Because his mentality is the type of mentality I have. And I don't understand how that could be misconstrued as cockiness or arrogant. But coming from someone like a Colin, like I can understand he's doing it for clicks. But how do you convey to just, because he's still relatively young, that guess what? Mute out the noise and keep working, young man.
Yeah, I like the fact that he's confident and he's open in terms of telling us what his goals are and what he plans on doing. Just because I know that he's leading. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be in the huddle with a quarterback that when we take the field and before that drive, he's going to say, you know what, we're going to score this drive. Because now I got belief. You know what I'm saying? I believe. Right. I know he's confident. I know he's going to lead us to do what he's saying, to do what he said he's going to do, or at least he's going to give us all to do it. You know what I'm saying? I don't want a quarterback that's going to come and hold and say, hey, guys, I think we're going to score this drive. Ready, break. No, I don't want to play with nobody like that. You know,
Jonathan Quinn, Chad Hutchinson.
So man, like when you say, like when he came out and said that, I'm going to throw 4,000 yards. There's no Bears quarterback that has done that. That just means, like you said before, he's confident. Is he cocky? Yeah, a little bit, but it's because he's prepared. He's put in the work. He's put in the work. He knows what he's capable of. He knows the pieces that he has around him, so he knows it's possible. And he says, yes, that's what I'm going to do. When I hear that, and if I'm not even his teammate, but that just gets my juices flowing. So now that makes me, I have to elevate my game, because he put that pressure not only on himself, but he put it on us as an offense. You know what I mean? Now we got to make sure that we're going out there doing our job, because we know Justin's working. He says he's going to throw 4,000 yards. And if he's going to achieve that goal, then we're going to be, we're going to be a part of that process every step of the way.
And my last question, because me and Nick, we beat this into the ground. Jason, put on your GM hat. Right now, you're missing one piece on defense. And you know what that piece is. Yeah. Based off the availability of current free agency, and for shits and giggles, let's just say we might be able to engineer a trade for, let's see, a Chase Young or a Danielle Hunter or even a Bryce Huff in a very crowded edge room at the Jets. Which direction do you go? Or do you just go hopefully see if you can get a Houston or a Yannick Ngakoue and bring him to round off that defensive line? Because, again, the offense is going to explode, but I don't want to see a bunch of Miami games from last year, 35-32, 31-30, like, because at the end of the day, I do think we're going to put up a lot of points when you look at our schedule and you look at, like me and Nick have mentioned, and this is what people aren't even paying attention to, Jason. A lot of the teams that we're playing, they're either going through a soft rebuild themselves or they're going through a hard rebuild. If you look at this schedule, 100%. There's only 2 quarterbacks that scare me. And one of them just got $262.5 million today. And to me, the verdict is still out if he's worth that. But guess what? I understand what the LA Chargers are doing. Let's lock him up now before his value shoots up even higher.
Trying to tell you.
So Patrick Mahomes and on paper, those are the only 2 signal callers that put it, like Jared Goff doesn't, Kirk Cousins, Jordan. So when I hear a Mike Tannenbaum, that's why I stopped watching ESPN, because and I get it, the ratings and all that. But the takes when he said Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the NFC North, like, dude, what are you smoking?
Jason's reaction said it all right there, man.
Right. Like, what are you? I see why you've been fired twice as a GM. But Jason, put on your GM hat, Jason. What direction are you going in if you had the opportunity with $32 million available right now?
Man, you know what? And before, I'm like everybody else. Man, just sign this guy. Just sign this guy. Get Ngakoue. Get Hunter. Get this guy. At first. And now just looking at the way our team is set up, right? Looking at the way Ryan Poles attacked this offseason in terms of free agency, in terms of the draft, in terms of the money we had, in terms of the cap, making sure he brought in the right guys that fit the locker room first, that fit their culture, that could fit their scheme. You know what I mean? I would stick to the plan. I would stick to my plan. Like, Poles talked about, do I want to bring in a veteran guy? Yeah, I'll bring in a veteran guy, but it has to make sense, right? It has to make sense in terms of dollars, right? First of all,
for sure.
It has to make sense in terms of what can he bring to this team, right? Can he bring, we want mentorship and leadership. That's the number one thing. But at the same time, does he still have the ability to still make plays? And am I signing him to a contract that's still conducive to what our plan is moving forward? So I don't want to sign a veteran guy to a big contract, right? And then he doesn't produce. And that contract is going to go back and haunt us in terms of, the offseason next year is going to hinder us from making some of the moves because we took on a veteran who didn't produce and gave him this contract. Now it's not conducive to our future in terms of continuing to build this team, continuing to be able to put a competitive product out there on the football field. So, I'm with Poles. You know what? I'm going to take my time. Obviously, there's still guys, who they're looking at to develop. Dominic Robinson, he hasn't played a position for a long time. Looking at him to develop. Travis Gibson didn't have a great year last year. How is he going to rebound from that? You bring in DeMarcus Walker, Andrew Billings. You brought in guys who fit your scheme, who bring an element of leadership, who've been a part of winning organizations. And can those guys be multipliers and enhance the play of everybody around us? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what he's doing right now. Now, if there's a guy out there, and Ngakoue we talked about, Hunter, I don't think they would get him. I don't see Minnesota trading him within the division. But Justin Houston, if there's a guy out there, right, and it makes sense in terms of the contract, and we've done I've talked to my scouts, and they've done their research where they feel like he can come in and be a good contributor in terms of productivity, but also bring an element of leadership and be a culture setter in that locker room. If it makes sense, well, then, I'll bring him in because he's going to make our football team better. And as a GM, each and every day, I have to continue looking at this team as a whole and always try to find ways that I can make us better. I can keep us competitive, but also not just competitive right now in the present. I got to make sure that I'm doing the right things that way we'll stay competitive in the future.
Correct. Sustain success. So we can have 05, 06, and then don't have to wait to 11, then from 11 to 2018. Like, again, we love the plan that Ryan Poles has put in play. But, okay, that's my business side. I love that. But as a fan side, I'm looking at this schedule. I'm like, look, if we got an edge rusher in there, when we got a lead, we're talking. That game against the Vikings, we was down 21-3, and we went up 22-21. We didn't even we didn't even sniff Kirk Cousins on that last drive they scored, and that was a lot of the games we lost this year. So I'm okay. I know everything is about Justin's development, the offense development. I get it, but if we have an opportunity this year, at a minimum, to win the North, beat Green, I'm all in. And the situation I'm looking at, Jason, is really Washington, because they've sunk a lot of money into Deron Payne, into Jonathan Allen. Sweat is up for an extension. Sweat and Chase Young, I don't care what they say. Chase Young, they didn't exercise his fifth-year option. He's not getting paid. So what I'm thinking they're going to do, if they don't trade him now, they're going to let him play up until the trade deadline and then trade him, sort of like what we did with Roquan and Robert Quinn, to see what assets they can get in return as far as draft capital. And would he be a good fit with us? If he returns to form, because 1.5 sacks, it scares me the last 2 years, very limited production. But if he can get to that 10 to 12 sack, then to me, I'm making the call. I got a fourth rounder ready for you because I know we got two.
But we don't know that.
Yeah, another thing too.
But we don't know that yet.
Yeah, but
that's what scares me. We don't know that.
Right.
Yeah, another thing too is when you look at it. All right, so taking a chance on a guy like Chase Young who's coming off an injury, right?
Right.
You sign him, but is he like in terms of where he at right now? He's still an unknown. Like we have the unknowns right now. Dominic Robinson's an unknown. Travis Gibson's an unknown on how he's going to rebound from the season last year. So when you look at it, I'm not saying Travis Gibson and Chase Young's the same player, but they're in a similar situation. Chase Young coming off 1.5 sacks for the last 2 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Travis had 7 2 years ago.
Yeah, they're in the same situation. So
but see, he had 7. If you look at it, J Mac, he had 7 playing with who though? Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, Robert Quinn, 100%. And I think was that the year that Robert Quinn had 18 sacks. So
2 years ago.
A lot of the attention. So he thrived in that type of system where he could basically benefit from having Quinn and Hicks and all those other. But when the attention solely became on him, like he was getting swallowed up. And then, like you said, Dominique Robinson, former wide receiver, so like he's learning the position.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit more patient because that's one of Poles' draft picks. So I'm a little bit more patient with the draft picks that Poles are put in play. But I just don't want. We've been waiting so long for such a dynamic winner, consistent winner. I'm talking 4, 5, 6, 7 years in a row. Mm-hmm. So when you see the opportunity that we have right now, and I know we got to be patient, but I don't want to waste these opportunities because, like you said, the window is small. It can be on the top of the mountain today, but then tomorrow, look at the Rams. That's a case in point right there. They won the Super Bowl, and they haven't been as competitive, not even close since. Assets like it's the first of the month. And anybody come on down and come pick, but we're young, and I think if we come out the gate strong, I think build that momentum, build that consistency and that cohesion and that camaraderie. I hope I can cover any deficiency that we currently have. But I just want us to take advantage of this opportunity that I feel like I said, 10 wins to me is the floor. That's where I stand right now. And I think the edge position can play a vital role in that.
No, I agree.
And I can't wait. I cannot wait till we all reconnect again. I know we're up at time here, guys. And, Jason, can't thank you enough for coming on. I can't wait for us to check back in a couple weeks or when I see you at camp and, we're a couple days in, we're like, all right, this guy's doing what he's supposed to do. When Dominique Robinson has 8 sacks, when DeMarcus Walker has, the same amount of 8 sacks, 8 games in, this team is going to make a lot of noise. And I think that the Chicago Bears fans know, which is great, 4th biggest market in the NFL. But the rest of the NFL, they usually say haters talk louder when they know something's about to happen. And something's brewing at Hallis Hall right now. And I know that we all know it, and the rest of the NFL isn't ready for it. So, Jason, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We had a ton of fun. I know Will and I have a ton of fun every time we come on the show. We like to bring people in because all we do is chop it up all day. We could probably talk for another 3 hours and we'd be like, oh, we got to end this thing soon. But Jason, we can't thank you enough for coming on, telling the stories about the 2005, 2006, and your entire playing time with the Chicago Bears, along with what you're excited about. And I can't wait to see what's next. So can't thank you enough, Jason. Seriously, really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys, man. You guys keep it going. And anytime you need me, you got me. So keep it going. Good to see you guys. Hope to see you guys at training camp.
No doubt.
Absolutely. And Will, thanks again for always logging on, man. I appreciate it. You helped organize this whole thing.
Appreciate it for sure.
And we're going to keep this thing going. But Bears fans, put your thoughts in the comments section below about what you think. But thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, joined alongside Jason McKie and Will Wright, and we will see you guys next time.